I didn't want to be here today, if I'm honest. This is the first time that I've been back in this church since my dad's service. And so I'm really emotional today because it's not only Women's History Month, but I'm at a place in my life where I'm graduating law school and my life is just changing completely right now. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cry through this whole thing, so y'all just gotta come with me. This is Friends and Family Sunday for a reason, so I feel comfortable here to be able to express myself. Um, I'm transitioning into a new space, and so when I was asked by my mom to come and speak today, I was like, oh, I can't do this, Ma. Like, I don't want to talk and I don't want to stand up here, but it not only signals a change for me, but it also signals standing in a place that my dad stood a lot. And for me, I'm just kind of like, I have to find um, new meaning, new purpose, just because I'm taking a career change and my rock is not here anymore. And so that's rough for me. But I titled my message today, Authorized to Change. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about what I have done in these 31 years. And not that that's a long time, but 31 years of life have taught me a lot of things that I don't know if it's just me, but there's something about not learning the lesson fast enough or quick enough, and God taking you through this circular motion again and again and again until you realize what He's trying to tell you. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I decided to give you guys 10 things I've learned in 31 years. And I think that was the easiest way to frame this message because I have done so much in 31 years. And so as I look forward and I look back at the same time, I realized that God beat me up a little bit, but I'm still standing here today strong and with the power of God and my dad behind me. And so I didn't give Mr. James a scripture before I got here, but I do want you guys to turn to Isaiah 43:16 through 19. Isaiah 43:16 through 19. I'll give you guys a moment to find it. Isaiah 43. Oh. Thank you, Miss Iris. And it says, "Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings forth chariot and horse, army and warrior. They lie down. They cannot rise. They are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." And I wanted to use Isaiah 43:16 through 19 because when I think about the 31 years that I've been in this life, I have to remember that almost every time that I have been worried or in fear, God has made a way out of no way. And so that last verse, when it says, "I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert," to me, that means when there are no resources and you are isolated, you are alone, God always provides you what you need. And so when I sat down and I thought about the 10 things that I wanted to talk to you guys about that I have learned in these 31 years, a lot of them have to do with how much faith I've had to embody as I've gone through this journey. And I think that the word faith sometimes is kind of cliche, like, oh, have faith, oh, have faith. But faith is almost like you have to be irrational to have faith. You have to like think of everything impossible and be okay with that. Like, can you have enough faith to be like, this might not work out and still do it? And I think God puts us in those situations to test to see if we really trust Him or not. And so I thought it was interesting in the Bible verse when he asked, "Do you not perceive it?" It's like, how, God, are you going to ask me, can I not see you? Like, what am I doing that I'm blinded so much so that I don't understand that you're with me. And so the first one that I listed on my 10 things that I've learned in 31 years is that imposter syndrome is a signal that my faith far outweighs my fear. And to me, as a law student, I think that I've been in a lot of spaces in the last 3 years that have felt extremely uncomfortable, where I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like people had more qualifications than I. I thought people were better spoken and had more past degrees and all of that. And law school has an environment of elitism already. So everybody feels like, they're better than the next person. They can out-test you in these environments. And so every time I felt like I did not belong somewhere, I had to remember, how did I get here? How else would I have been here if it was not for God placing me in this room? And I had to remember that whatever my purpose is in this space wouldn't be fulfilled if I don't speak up. And I have the confidence to show up in these spaces. And especially in the corporate law firm environment, I think there's a lot of expectation that you blend in and you silence yourself and that you follow the crowd. And in the last 2 years, I have not done that. And I'm still hired. They haven't kicked me out yet. And I think that when I'm standing firm and I'm saying, we need this, we need that, we need diversity, this is how we're going to create more retention. At first, I didn't know what was going to happen. But I had to remember that God didn't place me here for no reason. And so every time I've spoken up, something's happened. And I think that the words that I speak are purely from heaven and that they are landing on those people because I'm meant to be there. And I had to remember that every time that I speak, I have to be convicted of what I'm saying. I have to make sure I'm doing the work behind and finding out the numbers and making sure I'm coming correct with my information, because I am one of the only Black people in those spaces, and I have to make sure that I'm coming correct. My number 2 is that strength can be shown through vulnerability. Man, that's been rough these last couple weeks. Losing my dad, I think he was like the epitome of strength. Like, he just never was swaying by anything. He was never falling off the rock or anything like that. And so when I position myself with my friends as the strong one, sometimes I isolate myself. Because when you're the strong friend, people think you always good. Like, you all right, she the strong friend. You all right, you the strong one. You lift everybody up. You call everybody. You make sure everybody else is good. And I think through this experience, I've had to be more vulnerable and reach out and call out and tell my friends, today is not the day. I need y'all to come over here and clean my house. I need y'all to come and pick me up off the floor. I need y'all to make these meals and write these emails. And I've had friends like put my homework together and send it off. And I think if I wasn't able to be vulnerable and open about how I'm feeling, even with you guys today, listen, I am not in the best space today, but God told me to come and stand up here. And so that's what I'm going to do. And by telling you guys that I'm not feeling the best, I hope that you guys can look into your lives and know that when you're not feeling the best, God can still use you. And so by sharing and being authentic with people around you, I think that is the epitome of real strength. And so don't always posture yourself as the strong one. Sometimes your weakness helps the next person sitting next to you. My number 3 was that God will use you even when you don't want to be used. I think this one's kind of funny because I took my dad to a lot of appointments towards his final days, and we talked so much. And the drive was probably like 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. And so one day I remember this conversation very vividly. We were talking about, I was complaining to him, really. I was like, I don't know why I have all these needy friends, and why I'm always the friend that has to help and be the savior of everybody. And my dad was like, Jade, that's your purpose. God puts you around needy people because you are sent to help. And I was annoyed. And I was like, why I gotta help? You know what I'm saying? Why do I have to be the one to lift somebody else up? But I think sometimes we get so absorbed with ourselves that we forget that every interaction, there's a purpose for us being there again. And so sometimes when my friends call me, I realize I'm not supposed to be the one talking. I'm supposed to be the one listening. And so if I'm talking, I'm missing the point of my purpose in the conversation. Or even sometimes when there's conflict and I'm trying to figure out, well, why are you talking to me like that? Why are you doing me like that? And ultimately, I was just supposed to be the middleman or the mediator in the situation. I wasn't supposed to be in the drama. I'm just supposed to be the facilitator. And so I have to sometimes take myself out of situations and kind of like look at it in a position of, why am I here? And sometimes you have to ask yourself, if you don't know why you're there, you got to stop for a moment and be like, why am I here? What is my purpose here? Who am I supposed to be influencing? Who am I supposed to be impacting? And I used to even sometimes in networking events, I would be like, I'm talking to one person, I'm going to sit down and be quiet. But then I missed the 5 opportunities God gave me to reach out and touch a sister or touch a brother or impact and invite somebody out to church or whatever it is. I have to make sure that I'm being intentional about what my purpose is in this spaces. And maybe I need to pray or maybe I need to talk to God before I get there. But if I am not intentional about being used by God, how can he use me? And you have to be okay with being in spaces and places that you might not want to be or might not want to be used in that way. Number 4 is the seeds you sow will grow, good or bad. And this one, more so, I think the lesson that I have learned is that when you put negativity out into the earth, it will grow whether you are intending to or not. And I think Mr. James was talking about anxiety and fear. And I think that that kind of makes me realize that if I have faith, anxiety and faith can't coexist. Because if I believe that God's going to do what he's supposed to do or what he said that he was going to do, then I have to stand firm in that. And so I can't give the what if this happens or what if that happens or what if this goes wrong or what if that goes wrong? What if they don't pick me? What if they don't hire me? I can't go through those conversations in my head. Like, if I get this interview, if it's for me, it's going to be for me. If I interact with somebody and they don't like me, that has nothing to do with me. If somebody's cursing me out and they're having a bad day, they cut me off, that don't got nothing to do with me. I don't have to interact and engage in negative energy, because what I sow will grow in my aura and in my space. And so I have to remember that in every interaction. And that's tough sometimes, especially when you got nieces and nephews and sisters and brothers. And when you have a lot of people around, you have to remember that everything you say out of your mouth is energy. And it will grow whether you want it to or not. And that's something that has been hard to edit. It's hard to pull it back, especially when you're angry. But try to constantly speak life and speak positive energy over everything you do. Because even in the smallest, I'm not going to make it, or this isn't right, or this isn't wrong. And it reminds me of the water experiment. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the water experiment, where they put water on 2 different petri dishes and they spoke negative words over one and positive words over the other. And the one that they spoke negative over, it came out really nasty and ugly, and the other one was clear. And something simple as that, like, we forget the words that come out of our mouth are energy. And so just remember that when you are interacting with people, when you're by yourself, even when you're thinking, your thoughts will become things if you don't control them. My number 5 was, there's no shortcut in doing good work. And with the new artificial intelligence, and there's just so many ways to shortcut things these days, sometimes I find myself just tired. I'm like, I'm going to just throw it in ChatGPT and see what pops out. Or I'm going to just, write this email or find a template and try to throw it out there. And I think that every single time I try to finesse something, it never comes out right. And I'm like, I should have just taken the time to do good work, because your reputation in the work that you do follows you. And so specifically, especially in law school, I've had to make a point to, if I'm tired, I got to rest. I can't keep pushing and keep going and keep trying to push something out or rushing through things and then having to go back and redo them anyway. You're going to have to go back every time and redo it anyway, so there's no need in taking the shortcut the first time around. And then God can't bless you and give you more if you're constantly cutting corners and finessing and trying to find the easy way around and the easy way out. More comes when you honor and you do good work the first time. Number 6 is, when you enter a space as an outcast, never blend in. And it kind of lends back to my first point about being an imposter, having imposter syndrome and feeling like you don't belong somewhere. But if not you, then who? I think about that all the time. My dad used to say that to me all the time because I used to always be like, well, somebody else gonna do it. I'm gonna just follow. And he'd be like, no, 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 no. We don't follow. If you are the only one, there's the reason why you're there and you're the only one. And so you can't be afraid of the repercussions that come from being an outcast. Sometimes you got to be louder and prouder about it because whatever change that needs to be stirred up in that space won't happen unless you do it. And so when you are an outcast, I pray that you have the confidence and that you feel enough self-worth in your outcastism to be able to stand firm and not be swayed by those that are around you. Number 7 is rest is not just for the weary. This is something that I think us independent women, we have a hard time with. I think a lot of women are super women. We're superheroes. We have to do it all. We cook, we clean, we work, we orchestrate, we're doing all of these things. And I think that we put ourselves last sometimes. A lot of times. And I really didn't learn this until maybe the last year. Like, I don't even have the energy to give if I don't rest at a certain level. I have to give my rest the same energy that I give the world because I won't be able, I'm borrowing from tomorrow's energy today. And then I'm constantly in a cycle of depletion and burnout. And then I'm never actually performing at the level that God has given me my values to be at. And so I've had to learn to say no, no. And that's something that is hard for me, I think, especially when I feel like I have a little bit of FOMO, which is just the fear of missing out. And so I used to say yes to everything and want to be a part of everything. And that at this 31, I don't know if it hits once you hit 30 or something, but I'm just saying no these days because I know that my rest is very, very important to my future success, and I can't borrow from tomorrow today. Number 8 is God's timing is perfect and predestined. I had to stop questioning God about why things are happening the way they're happening and had to understand that everybody's time on this earth is limited. And the real question is, what are you doing with it? And I think that that's something that I love my dad for because I felt like he didn't waste no time. Like every moment I always saw him moving around and shaking and doing stuff and orchestrating and making sure that he left a legacy that is honorable. And so when I think about my life and in this new season that I'm going in, I am very, very, very intentional about my faith. And I know I said that at the beginning, but I'm very intentional about believing that I'm always in the right place at the right time and that God is putting me in places for a reason. And I need to be making sure that the time I'm using in these spaces is intentional. Number 9, I struggle with. And it's just that your body, your temple, your health should not be secondary. And I think it has something to do with breaking generational curses. Because I think my people specifically were not taught how to eat and how to exercise and how to clear your mind and your space of what we consume. And so I think I've had to be very intentional about scheduling the gym and saying no to candy and saying no to things that I know are not good for my body. And I think as I get older, I'm seeing the effects of it in my skin and in like my health and my sleep. And so I've had to put a priority on making sure that my health is first. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Because if we honor God as much as we say we do, I think that we have to honor our temple. And that is something that's extremely important, especially for my people, where we have to go teach ourselves. And it wasn't something that, has been passed down like other ethnicities. And just lastly, number 10 is that I am empowered to constantly change. I have been a victim of, and I have been the victimizer of putting people in a box and expecting them to act a certain way because I've decided who they are. And it's funny because me and my partner, we argue all the time about just the different households that we come from and the outcomes that are expected from those households. And I think that if we get away from putting people in boxes, not only can we thrive at a higher rate, we let other people be themselves more. And I think we always hear people say, refrain from judgment, refrain from judgment. But I think it's so easy to judge. It's easy to be like, oh, you got two parents, you good. But there's so much diversity and perspective across people's lives, and you don't know what people are going through or what they've got on their backs. They could have the perfect life on the outside, but on the inside they could be struggling with mental health or abuse and so many other things. And so I think it is so important to stay away from putting people in the box that you've created for them. You are not God. I am not God. I don't know what God has for you. I know what God is telling me to do. And so I want to make sure that I remain steadfast to my purpose. And if my purpose last week was to be a dancer and my purpose next week is to be a lawyer, that's what God has for me. And nobody can tell me any different. And so it's just interesting because I've switched careers so many times. And people are like, oh, I thought you were doing this. I thought you were doing that. Don't worry about what God got for me. You got to worry about what God got for you. But what we shouldn't do is tell people what they should. Oh, you should have been gone to New York. You should have been doing this. You should have been doing that. Don't worry about what God got for me. You have to focus on what God has for you. And if you're not listening because you're so focused on what everybody else is doing, you're going to miss it. Which is why I love this verse, because it's like, do you perceive it? God, how you asking me? Because you're distracted. Don't be distracted by what everybody else is doing. Focus on your purpose. And I guarantee that your life will be 100 times better. And just understand that your time is limited on this earth. And if you change tomorrow, nobody should tell you that that's not valid, because it is. It's valid. Every single day on this earth, you never know what God's going to give you. But you have to be open and have faith that it is what it is. And that's what he said. It was. And so that's what I just wanted to leave you guys with. Those are the 10 things in my 31 years that God done hit me upside the head with 100 times. And so now that I'm graduating law school in a couple weeks and I'm moving on into this new era of life, I've had to sit down and think about what it means for me to step into the woman that I'm becoming and what history do I want to leave. And so it's important to me to be intentional, use my time wisely, and stay faithful. So thank you, guys.